You were supposed to be the chosen one. The one who would lead music forward into the light. Sure, there were some stumbles along the way. Ooh, that one was a bit rude. Okay, that's not, well, at least the music was still good at this point. Oh no. Oh, what is that? Oh dear. Oh no. On a personal and controversy level, the dark side won.
You were the chosen one! Chosen one!
But what about the music? Surely it hasn't suffered. Hello everyone, CDTV here, and today we're doing something that I never thought would be done. A worst rappers in the game video on the artist formerly known as Kanye West. And I say formerly known as because, as you can see, this video is not about Kanye West. This is specifically about the music that he has officially released under the shortened name of Ye, which, wouldn't you know it, pretty perfectly coincides with some of the worst music of his career. In case you're wondering what I listened to for this video, I consider the shift in Ye's music really kicking off with the Donda 2 stem player release, but becoming more solidified around the VULTURES era, so the albums considered for my ratings today are VULTURES 1 and 2, Donda 2's streaming release, and the newly released Bully, along with the singles that he released and then quickly unreleased under the Ye name. His unreleased CUCK/World War III album might be referenced at points in this discussion, but it won't be considered for the ratings much at all really, because thankfully it never became an official release, despite a version of it leaking in full. Thank God, because that would make things even worse. And right before we get into it, I want to thank CyberGhost VPN for sponsoring today's video. With over 38 million users worldwide and a near perfect Trustpilot score, CyberGhost VPN is perfect if you're looking for a reliable way to protect your privacy on the internet and bypass online regional restrictions. I've actually been using it recently while traveling, staying in hotels, and using their public Wi-Fi. Rather than just openly using it and putting my data at risk, I used CyberGhost to help keep me safe while browsing by encrypting my traffic and keeping me digitally anonymous. And if privacy is your main concern, they have you covered, as even CyberGhost themselves don't keep logs of your activity either. And of course, there's one of my favorite benefits of using it to bypass regional streaming restrictions. Want to watch something on Netflix that's only available in another country? You can do that with CyberGhost. Or if you're a wrestling fan like myself, but you happen to be located in the US, it's so much easier to watch every WWE show on Netflix and AEW's weekly shows on Triller by setting your virtual location to the UK with CyberGhost. Hell, there's even certain rap albums and songs that are only available in certain regions. CyberGhost can help you there too. Just choose another country in 2 clicks and unblock libraries of 40 streaming platforms. It's super easy to use. What's more, CyberGhost can protect you on up to 7 devices at the same time, so one subscription can go a long way. So, if you want to protect your anonymity online and not be restricted by regional blocks, now is the perfect time to get CyberGhost VPN. And if you use my link in the description, you'll get an 84% discount, along with an additional 4 months for free. And you can take advantage of this risk-free with a 45-day money-back guarantee and access to 24/7 customer support. Thank you to CyberGhost VPN for sponsoring today's video. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is CDTVProductions, and let's get into the worst rappers in the game episode that should have never existed.
Still in a leopard skin, and check me out, then check me in. See this coat, nigga?
Talking about Ye's current delivery is interesting because each project is a little different with the way that he sounds, and each definitely has its issues. On Donda 2, everything about it feels like a prototype still, despite it officially being on streaming services, and that includes Kanye himself. enough. The half-hearted way he raps here makes it feel like it's still a template for a project that needs finishing up. And hell, sometimes it's not even actually Kanye. Donda 2 has some mumbled sections that need filling out. Well, isn't Ye just so lucky that there are AI vocal filters out there now? Mr. Miyagi is an egregious example of this, a Kanye drill track that has banger potential, but is ruined by having a verse that is a reference from Fat Money ran through a Ye AI vocal filter to sound like him in the most cold and robotic way.
Dum dum, 2,500 for a Wagyu steak, it was undone. She won't sip my soup, but it ain't 1 ton. Oh, dum dum, 2,500 for a Wagyu steak, it was undone. She won't sip my soup, but it ain't 1 ton.
If you look into Donda 2 at all, you'll see the name Fat Money come up a lot. He was basically the main reference track guy for this project. Other AI sections on here include verse 3 on Happy, which has the double whammy of bullshit because despite being finished with AI, it still has a mumbled verse in there as well.
Had just hopped up at the Uda. Next week, I'm at party by Uma. Don't wanna come at me, so I'm with a rumor. I'm the landlord, little boy, you a tenant. She in all black, that's something I invented. You better have her back soon, she just getting rented.
The City of Shy verse.
I wasn't going out like a sucker then. I ain't going out like a sucker now. You want me.
I wasn't going out like a sucker then. I ain't going out like a sucker now. You want me.
Jesse, which could have been a good song with some real vocals. I really like the beat for that one. And First Time in a Long Time.
She gon' tell her daddy don't call again. You would never speak to her again. All she ever wanted was an audience.
She gon' tell her daddy don't call again. You would never speak to her again. All that Jesse wanted was an audience.
And I don't even think that's everything. And you can bet your ass that AI will be factored into the delivery rating for this section. Let me explain why. It might not be Kanye's voice, but this segment isn't purely rating his voice. It's rapping style, delivery, and flow, and if he's delivering his vocals with AI as a vessel for that, that's the delivery method. The fact that he's using it is embarrassing enough that it has to be factored into the ratings here somewhere. And then when it really is him, there are those abrasive moments like the ear-scratching vocals on Too Easy. That's 808s and ear breaks right there.
Remember mama telling me it'd be alright. Let go all of my problems and call Christ.
The uncomfortably unhinged sounding delivery on Happy when it is Ye.
And we all wanna be happy. Do I look happy? Do I look happy to you? Do I look happy to you?
And the songs where he sounds half asleep, like Louis Bags, which also has AI in there as well. Vulture's projects are weird because Kanye does have a certain level of energy on these projects, but that often leads to moments that just ruin certain songs. Immediately Paid jumps into my mind, smooth chorus, bouncy beat, but then Ye comes through squeaking and shrieking on the track, just killing it entirely.
I'm just here to get paid. I'm just here to get paid.
I got boot in the cup, Mistake. Cup, look in the closet's 15. Rock shit. You don't have to reserve with the red light.
Don't even get me started on when he decides to halt back to me for like a minute of auto-tune rambling. Him going Alvin and the Chipmunks mode on Fuck Some. He sounds horrible on Carnival. King manages to be simultaneously boring and annoying vocally. Fried has vocals that match the ugliness of the instrumental. Husband has bad singing. Paperwork is like a really weird, weak Drake imitation flow.
Baby, now keep me up, yeah, keep me up, don't beat me up.
Bring 4 shots right now. Shut the hell up or you get it out.
And I'm still crazy. Let me get my paper right. Then come out, let's play tonight. It's plenty paper in rotation. Let's pick a private location. It's a no relation vacation.
There's a lot to dislike here. And do I need to mention the AI on V2 in particular? Field Trip, 530, Forever, and very obviously Sky City still have lifeless AI sections on them.
Ain't on my level, little bitch, don't reach. Always hollering about you rich, we reach. This ain't no regular cheddar, this quiche. Throwing stones in a glass prison. Cuss me out at our last visit. Mad dizzy, we drunk, past limit.
Always wanted to know, did Biggie get a big house? Do Pac got a thug mansion? Is it pimped out?
Lazy as fuck. Kanye is the big draw for most people on the Vultures projects, but the problem is, he's often the weak link and the worst performer on them. And then finally, Bully comes into the mix, and on this album, Kanye just sounds really tired, honestly.
Took it worldwide, like I said I would from jump. Know I did it all when it's all said and done. Send it up.
The delivery is lifeless, dejected, and in a way that is the complete opposite to his usual brashness and ego. He sounds kind of unconfident on this album, just going through the motions, delivering lines that he usually would with a braggadocious energy in the most underwhelming way.
This that feeling we need more of. The hating just brought me more love. Guaranteed my vice is different than yours was. I've been blowing money fast, it could not go quicker. Throw it in a bag like a fastball pitcher. Designated hate for the designated hitter.
There's moments where you see flashes of the old Kanye in there, but I think for the most part he sounds like a shell of Kanye rather than this being a return to form. Some people say that's what they like about the project. He does sound tired, but maybe that could reflect him apparently trying to scrape things back together and maybe take a bit of a step in a better direction, but I don't think it really comes across that way as a sort of concept, and rather makes for a really disengaging listen, rather than adding any kind of depth to the project. Bully, as far as Kanye is concerned as a rapper, just feels like a lesser reference to his previous work of much higher quality. You do get a lot of your sort of trademark Kanye flows on Bully, which can be nice. The second verse of Preacher Man, for example, I think goes together very smoothly.
Made love that's unmakeable, bond is unbreakable. Broke rules and bent corners in hopes of breaking through.
King is good in that regard too. Keep in mind there are two different tracks called King that I'm talking about here. The Vultures one is bad, the Bully one is better, and the way his flow moves along with the production on Beauty and the Beast is pretty smooth.
It's been a long time coming. Running checks still clear, still think about it every night and day to try to stay away to keep my heart tucked.
But they are all hurt to varying degrees by the lack of energy from Ye on this album. It also has AI too, by the way, despite Ye claiming that it wouldn't. Preacher Man clearly has AI parts.
We pass on the settlements. This path I'll recommend.
This one here is AI, and this one is quite contentious, but all the love wasn't AI at the listening party. However, it seems like it potentially could be on the streaming release version. Depressingly hilarious, considering that seems to be everybody's favorite from the project. Now again, this one is in contention, and it's one that I'm a little bit shaky on because it is harder to tell. Unfortunately, I think the AI vocal model is just slightly better on Bully, and therefore harder to detect. But if you listen to the listening party version side by side with the streaming version, the listening party one definitely sounds a bit more authentic and like real vocals with some real emotion and nuance to them.
We don't have to worry, and we don't have to hold on. We don't have to worry, and we don't have to hold on.
But hey, at this point, Kanye subreddits are defending his music by comparing it to piss burgers. If your burger was tasty, you wouldn't want to know if someone pissed on it. What a favorable comparison for modern Ye music. Now it's worth noting, it's not all bad, of course. Each project has its moments where Kanye sounds awake. On Donda 2, the pickings are slim, but it has the We Did It verse, and it also has City of God thrown on there, which is a Kanye verse I've always loved from a delivery and flow perspective. Like, he was breezing on that beat, man. Might be one of the last, like, quality verses we got from him.
I'm from the shop, but I'm always New York in the city. They treat me like Jesus is walking. I've been through the pain and all of the torment. I saying his name, I'm making a point.
And while I don't like the track overall, he does sound pretty fired up and mad on Security.
Never take the family picture off the fridge. Never stand between a man and his kids. Y'all ain't got enough security for this.
The Vultures albums have Kanye displaying some solid energy levels on tracks like Do It, Slide. Burn has always been a great throwback to a better era of Kanye. Forever Rollin' has a really smooth flow, and while they might not be the greatest melodic performances from Ye ever, I do like his sections a lot on Promotion and River.
Southside do or die, Shot-Town top 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Who am I? Yay, that's yay.
How many times you ain't wanted, then they tell you what you gonna do. Had to dip off from London, I had to meet it that night. Fuck your favorite rapper, his number ain't even numbers. You know we is alien, landed SoFi Stadium. I feel like Hussein or something. I've been on a crazy run.
And Bully has occasional decent moments. So it's a lot to cover and digest, but taking all of this into account, I'm going to be giving this era of Ye overall a 3 out of 10 for the delivery and vocals, and a 6 out of 10 for his flow. You may have noticed I didn't explicitly mention the flow too much here, because in that regard, everything is just perfectly fine, and the vocals are really the bulk of the conversation here, the part that is the most worth speaking about. And when it comes to the vocals, it's a range of weak singing, low energy, annoying vocals, and robotic AI filters, with just some moments where he sounds better. Honestly, a 3 might be generous there.
She giving blowjobs and I applied.
Oh boy, the lyrics. I think we all know what the worst offenders are, so let's address them quickly. World War III and HH, which, never forget, were official Kanye releases at one point, are just obnoxiously edgy, being written by 4chan Juice WRLD himself, Dave Blunts. It is the peak of Ye's rage bait obsession, and it is rough. There's nothing really of substance to talk about with these, it's just overly edgy garbage. And I've expressed before how I don't really like the way that Cousins completely butchers its heavy subject matter. A song that deals with something so dark shouldn't have a second half that is an already released Dave Blunt song with the Ye AI vocal filter over it that kicks off with a trans joke.
Trends don't help me, it just put me in a trance. I'm talking about euphoria, I'm not talking about a man.
Now, when we're talking about the Vultures albums, welcome to Porn Addiction City, my friends. These albums are basically post-divorce Kanye in his fuck everything era, literally, and it's rare that you get a song on these projects that isn't horny as hell. But the problem with that is it's not even fun and absurd horny like Yeezus, for example. It just feels kinda gross and a little depressing. This is like dingy strip club sex music, porn store viewing room anthems. And of course, anytime he references his controversies that he caused with his own actions on this album, it's done with so much bitterness and sarcasm that, again, it's just a bit sad to listen to. The title track for Vultures 1, for example, just has such an unappealing quality to the writing.
And we with the foolishness. I'm anti-Semitic, I just fucked a Jewish bitch.
There's also Carnival, which is just a train wreck, with Ye comparing himself to R. Kelly and Bill Cosby.
Anybody pissed off? Gotta make a drink the urine. Now I'm Ye Kelly, bitch. Now I'm Bill Cosby, bitch. That's me, to me, rich.
Don't forget that a big bulk of the past year has been Ye supporting Diddy and campaigning for his release. There's a really weird pattern here. I just feel like I need a shower after listening to this Vulture stuff. Quite a theme to all of this. Modern Ye is just depressing. Not to mention on Vultures 2 you have Husband, which is one of the most lyrically sinister tracks presenting itself as a beautiful thing that I have ever heard.
And it won't be long till you're out of pants. The only thing you really need is a husband. All your goals is promised with this ring.
That song activates my fight or flight response. Thanks, Kanye. Mostly on these projects, you'll come across the occasional funny out-of-pocket bar and maybe a good verse every now and then. Now, Donda too. This is where you really get the worst of it. Hell, some of the songs aren't even finished. Yes, on the streaming version, which came out 4 years after the stem player one. And so several sections here are just Kanye mumbling an approximation of the lyrics. My favorite thing that this results in is the transcribers on genius.com just kinda guessing what Kanye was saying and filling in the blanks for him to the best of their ability.
About them got the mix. Not to think out the streets.
That is definitely not what he was saying there, because he wasn't saying words. And with certain tracks, the subject matter here is the midlife crisis special, with a big focus on his divorce from Kim Kardashian, his frustrations with her new man at the time, Pete Davidson, and being unable to see his kids. Security is a big example of this.
I put the security at risk. Okay, we gon' make this an event. Y'all gonna need security for this.
The content being charged by his real-life events is completely understandable and expected, but it just comes across really rough on Donda 2. Oh well. At the very least, I'll never forget the Morgan Freeman bar on Sci-Fi.
When you laid down and I gave you the scene, man, I swear I heard God, the voice of Morgan Freeman.
Bit bizarre.
And then once again, we get to Bully. Thankfully on this newest one, Kanye has pretty much entirely removed any of the controversial stuff from the writing and the content. Now you could argue it would be good if he actually meaningfully addressed his actions of the past few years on this album, but at the very least he doesn't lean into it or fully dismiss it or clap back at it like he did on previous projects. The bare minimum is the bar for Kanye right now apparently. And you have instances here and there where certain lines or wordplay will be quite reminiscent of the man who once was Kanye West. Climax fast to a slow jam is classic Ye.
Till you bigger than the program. Climax fast to a slow jam.
The first track, King, in its entirety lyrically, feels like a great trademark Kanye verse.
I brought a white queen to the altar. Couldn't happen without Martin Luther. What's the Kelly Price? What's the Kevin Costner? She ain't dealing with no shallow house. She want that Iron Man like Gwyneth Paltrow. That's why people throwing in a towel.
Honestly, most of Bully works alright if you just read the lyrics, because again, it's the delivery and lack of confidence that holds these tracks back. I do wish the project had more in the way of truly meaningful lyrics, but thankfully, it's not a noxious barrage of unpleasantness like his projects before it. Also, I feel like each song on there is kinda too short to fully dive into the concepts it approaches particularly deeply. Bully is decent lyrically, sometimes reminiscent of his old stuff, but it's not prime Kanye in that regard by any means. Once again, a rating for this one is slightly tricky. I think I'm gonna go with a 3 out of 10 for Kanye's lyrics. The CUCK / World War III singles that he released on streaming are the worst, of course, and do impact the rating, but they only make up about 5% of my listening for this video. However, the Vultures albums rarely have rating highlights from Ye, maybe an occasionally funny bar here and there, and if you're lucky, a good overall verse. Donda 2 is a messy scrapyard of ideas, and Bully has lines that remind me of old Kanye often, but doesn't really have tracks that are tightly focused enough or conceptually strong to hold it all together. During this era, you almost never come across those emotional highlights or deeper personal tracks that are big parts of other Kanye albums. I like meaningful Kanye, and he's rarely a part of the Ye music.
Who's not entertained by my pain? Who ain't cash a check off my name? When my campaign turned to campaign.
Well, I never thought I'd be saying this about Kanye, but now the production is one of the only truly appealing parts of his music. Make no mistake, the production has always been a huge draw of his music, but the difference is that he used to match it as an artist. But at least in the modern day, this part is still mostly great. As you can tell, I'm not favorable towards most of the albums that we're talking about here, but man, the Vultures albums would make for some pretty great instrumental projects. The beats there still manage to exude that grand, larger-than-life feeling that a lot of Kanye music often has. Slide, Back to Me, Do It, Burn, Time Moving Slow, Promotion, River, they all bump in their own way.
Rough Rider anthem just to drop. Reach for the popcorn, oops, that's my cock.
Even songs I don't love overall, like Field Trip, have pretty hard beats. Even Donda 2 has its strong instrumental highlights. True Love has a pretty great beat with those rolling drums.
No hard feelings, but these feelings harder. No hard feelings, but these feelings harder.
We Did It nails that triumphant sound and bumps with the sort of softer thump of the 808s.
Chopping down with it, what a name. Know what I'm saying? I'm telling you. Pushing Pete, Bill Bellamy. Trying with a felon.
There's a good chunk I'm not crazy about on there, but you still do get your highlights with the beats. The really unfortunate thing is, even those Dave Blunt singles have some pretty solid production. It's a shame they were used for the tracks that they were. If I just listened to instrumental versions of stuff like World War III, man, that is the definition of wasted potential right there.
Get hard, get hard, get hard, get hard, get hard, get hard, get hard.
A very glorious sound to it, and it was used for that. Even Cousins manages to sound pretty haunting and dark instrumentally. Thankfully for once in this video, it's faster to list off the stuff that I don't like here. Lifestyle is still an annoying one with the overly loud and distracting sample.
I start talking dirty like I'm Nelly. Give me my lip service like Sally.
Dead was ruined a little when they updated the album and boosted the hell out of the 808s.
She rocking calls from 5 days ago.
Fried and Carnival are a style of beat that I'll just never enjoy, and of course, Hood Rat. Just awful. Donda 2 has the highest proportion of stinky beats here. Keep the Flowers has some ideas in there that could bump, but I just think the way it comes together is quite messy and it ends up sounding not very good as a result.
Keep the flowers in 100,000. Keep the flowers in 100,000.
Too Easy has some lovely keys on it, but honestly the drum-focused sections just sound a bit terrible with how they mix with Ye's auto-tuned voice on that track.
Two keys, two breeze, too easy.
But if nobody love me, I'm gonna love me.
And Security sounds like a bunch of angry mosquitoes with some flutes that occasionally fart their way into the instrumental every now and then. And it does bug me that a lot of the good beats on here are very much wasted, like Jesse, Mr. Miyagi, and Pablo.
Pick me up before I drown. Pick me up before I drown.
And as for Bully, thankfully that's pretty much all solid from a production standpoint. There's not much that blows me away on there necessarily, but it all works. Plenty of tracks with really smooth sample chops.
Meeting with some ministers and kings, I was nodding off. Haven't seen the kingdom as royal as my daughters are.
And King feels a little reminiscent of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, with the rolling drums and those buzzing synths. And I think a lot of the love for All the Love does come from that atmospheric beat, which once again has fantastic anthemic drums. Sisters and Brothers also has those great buzzing 808s, I really like that touch. Beauty and the Beast, wonderful instrumentally. So overall, this is gonna be the highest scoring section here by far. I don't think Kanye is at his peak in terms of beats for this era, but it is still very much a big strength of his music. Like, peak Kanye is like 9 out of 10 beats, 10 out of 10 beats. But here, I'm gonna go with an 8 out of 10 for Kanye's beat selection. It's the weakest on Donda 2, but even that has some bobs, and the Vultures projects along with Bully still have plenty of notable and enjoyable production. The biggest issue is that it's modern era Ye over this production. the actual beats themselves are pretty great.
They don't understand the things I say on Twitter. Nigga, hallelujah.
Enjoyment level. Let me give my thoughts on my enjoyment here to you by letting you know how I would rank everything that we listen to here from least worst to worst. Bully is maybe the least terrible one here, but honestly, I'm not even sure. Number 1, it still clearly has AI. Number 2, it feels lifeless and like Kanye doing an impersonation of himself from when his music was actually great. And number 3, it doesn't hit the lows of the Vulture stuff or Donda 2, but it doesn't ever really reach the highs of the best tracks from the Vultures era either for me. I'm gonna have to be honest about it, I'm surprised some consider this to be a comeback, when really it's just a weaker version of stuff Kanye has actually done well before, with all the soul removed. I don't think it will be remembered favorably in his discography. We'll put it as the best here for now, but my current rating is still like a 4.8 out of 10 for Bully. It's less of a step in the right direction than it is a small stumble towards hopefully making something actually good again. Next I'd have Vultures 2 and then Vultures 1 below it. Or maybe I'd have them as equally bad? I honestly don't know with these two. This is something I've actually shifted my opinion on a bit over time because I used to have V2 even further below V1, and now I'm a little conflicted on that. I do hate that V2 utilizes AI, and Husband, along with ruining Sky City, is pretty egregious, but I feel like V1 had way more tracks that Kanye ruined with his obnoxious vocals, and V2 has more tracks that I revisit overall. I also just don't like the more abrasive sound of V1. Neither are good, but I think V2 slightly edges this one out for me now. But honestly, don't take my word as gospel on that. I don't know. If I ever do a Kanye discography ranking, I'll try and make sure it's solidified before that. You know what? Consider them equal for this video. And then at the bottom, we have Donda 2, an album that just further proved what I said on Album of the Year about the stem player version. I don't think most of these songs would sound any better if they were actually finished. Thank you for proving me right, Yeezy. Oh yeah, and I'm not ranking the Dave Blunt singles here. They've been banished into the Shadow Realm. So, as you can tell, not a big fan of this era, really. It's an era defined by having little direction and somehow releasing weak songs despite making about 50,000 alternate versions of them. That, coupled with Kanye feeling very lost overall and lacking the endearing qualities of his older music, has been rough overall. Hopefully the next project after Bully is the actual comeback album that Kanye's biggest fans feel like Bully is, but I'm gonna remain skeptical until that happens. A 3.5 out of 10 for my enjoyment of this Ye era music. It's not the absolute worst stuff I've ever heard, with the exception of the obvious, but most of the quality lies in the production, with Kanye himself sounding like various fractured versions of himself.
This one is Papa.
I'm outside my body, you right.
So now it's time for the fun part. If we add up all the scores that Ye got throughout this video and then divide them by 5 for each individual rating, he gets an overall score of 4.7 out of 10. This places him at the number 24 spot on my worst rappers in the game list, in the rappers I don't enjoy much tier, a spot above XXXTentacion and one spot below Gunna. Holy fuck, man. I really never could have seen this coming. And really, the only thing that saves Kanye from falling lower is his production is still pretty incredible. He is the worst part of his music as a rapper right now. But I mean, hey, on the plus side, he would be ranking way lower here if he ever officially released the CUCK / World War III album. Just remember that. It could have been worse. If you said to me even 5 or 6 years ago that I would even end up making this video and then would be ranking Kanye so low on the list, I would have questioned how that even came to be. But here we are. It is one of the biggest musical fall-offs in history, and no matter how much I dislike the music of certain rappers that I've covered within this series, I can't say that many of them have the blemish on their record that Kanye does by officially releasing a track called Heil Hitler. That was still less than 1 year ago, by the way. It's only been 11 months. What a timeline we live in. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is gonna do it for this very reluctant episode of Worst Rappers in the Game. What did you think of this one, and how would you rate and rank Kanye if you were placing him in the list? Let me know down in those comments below. Maybe real soon I'll be doing a discography ranking video on Kanye West where I can talk about the good stuff within his music that used to be there once again. It's always nice to revisit his albums, and the last time I did one was after Life of Pablo, I think. I don't even think it included Ye, so it was a long time ago. That would definitely be worth updating, so I'll try and do that real soon. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll have a lot more fun in the next episode of Worst Rappers in the Game, of which there are several candidates for, so it'll be fun to get around to picking one of those. And once again, thank you to CyberGhost for sponsoring this one. Make sure to click my link in the description for 84% off with 4 additional free months, and protect your privacy online today. That's all I've got to say for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and much love to my channel members and Patreon supporters over there, with a special shout out to Concrete Gamer, Dalen Stonemeyer 490, Elena Knows Ball, Henry Flores ×2, I Am Region, and Neo Striker.